At 58, I had everything I once dreamed of. A penthouse overlooking the city skyline, my name engraved on multiple commercial buildings, and a voice people listened to in every boardroom I entered. But on the day my daughter graduated, honor student, valedictorian, I sat in silence, alone, watching it all unfold through a grainy live stream on my phone. I remember the camera panning across the audience, hundreds of faces smiling, clapping, some even crying. Then Ellie stepped up to the podium, eyes scanning the crowd. She paused for a second too long, and in that second, I knew. She was looking for me. And I wasn't there. Again. All those years I told myself I was doing it for them. Late nights, missed birthdays, canceled vacations, just temporary sacrifices, I said. But now, watching her blink away tears in a moment that should have been filled with pride, I realized I hadn't just missed a graduation. I'd missed her. I thought success would protect me from regret, but nothing insulated me from the silence that followed. No applause, no hug, no photo with my daughter in cap and gown, just a message from my ex-wife. She looked for you. That was the moment everything shattered, but that was also the moment I chose to start over. If you've ever believed that hard work justifies absence, I beg you, listen to this story. Before your child stops looking for you too. I met Laura at a community college mixer when I was 22 and broke. She was studying early childhood education. I was hustling through night classes while working part-time moving office furniture. On our third date, I told her, "One day, I'm going to give you a life so big, you'll never remember this apartment." We laughed then, sitting on a second-hand couch that sagged in the middle, eating cereal for dinner. But I meant every word. At our wedding, I looked her in the eyes and made that same vow again, only this time with a suit that fit and just enough confidence to make her believe I might actually pull it off. "I'll give you and our children a life no one else could," I said into the microphone, my hands slightly trembling. The applause was warm. Her eyes shimmered. We were young, naive, and impossibly hopeful. Ellie came into the world 3 years later. Laura went into labor early. I was in Denver at a leadership summit, the first of my career. I thought about skipping it when she called about the contractions, but it was the first time I'd been invited to represent my division. My boss said, "Real players show up when it counts." So I stayed. Ellie was born before sunrise. Laura texted me a picture. Red, wrinkled, beautiful. I wasn't there to cut the cord. I wasn't there to hear her cry for the first time. I wasn't there to name her. Laura chose the name herself. Ellie, I found out when I landed later that evening. It was the first name that came to my heart. She said, smiling, holding our daughter like she was a promise wrapped in a pink blanket. I smiled too, kissed their foreheads, told myself next time I'd be there. Next time didn't come soon. I got my big break 6 months later. A mid-tier firm was expanding its real estate footprint across the East Coast. They needed someone hungry, sharp, and willing to travel. I checked all 3 boxes. I nailed the interview. On the same night as Ellie's first birthday. Laura had spent days planning the party. Tiny cakes, matching pink balloons, a homemade crown. "Can you make it back in time?" she asked, just once a week before. Of course, I said. I meant it when I said it. But when the client dinner ran late and the flight got delayed, I ended up FaceTiming from an airport bench while my daughter smashed frosting into her face on camera. Laura didn't cry. She didn't even frown. She just said, she waved at the screen. I think she thought it was live TV. The promotion came 2 weeks later. I brought home flowers and a new gold bracelet for Laura. She looked at both and said, "I'm proud of you." Then she said something else, soft and quick, almost like she didn't want to mean it. "I know you're doing it for us." That line became the anthem of our early parenthood. Every late night, every missed weekend, every school function I promised to attend and didn't. Laura whispered it like a prayer. "He's doing it for us." And I convinced myself I was. I started believing the narrative that success could be stored like money, that one day I'd cash it all in and buy back every lost moment. I justify my absences by projecting a future full of family vacations, first-class flights, private schools, and college funds so secure our kids wouldn't need to worry about anything but dreams. But life isn't a savings account. It's spent moment by moment. When Ellie was 3, she had her first seizure. It happened during nap time at daycare. Laura called me 4 times before I saw it. I was in a conference room, halfway through signing a $14 million deal, a pen in one hand, my phone silenced in the other pocket. By the time I called back, Laura was already at the ER. She had driven there alone, sat through the tests alone, watched Ellie shake on a hospital bed alone. "I didn't want to scare you," she said when I arrived hours later. "She's okay now. They think it was febrile, heat-related, common." Her voice was calm, practiced, but her hands trembled. Ellie clung to her, eyes wide and confused, asking why Daddy came in a suit. I sat by her bed that night pretending to sleep, but inside something cracked. Still, I patched it over, told myself she'd never remember it, that I'd make it up at her 4th birthday, that I'd take her to Disneyland, just the 2 of us. I never did. Instead, I scheduled a business trip to San Diego that week and sent her a Minnie Mouse dress with a card that said, "Rain check. Love. Dad." And Laura? She smiled, said thank you, and didn't mention the hospital again. The invitation came in a yellow envelope decorated with glitter and glue. Inside was a note handwritten in neat 8th grade cursive. "I'm playing Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. Hope you can make it, Dad. There's a seat saved for you, front row, center." Ellie's first lead role. I read the note twice, then slid it into my desk drawer, right under a pending development contract. I told myself I'd be there. I even blocked it off on my calendar, Friday, 7 p.m. But Friday came, and I was still in D.C., pitching our latest proposal to a board of skeptical investors. When the meeting ran long, I called Laura just before curtain. "Stream it for me?" I asked. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. That night, I watched my daughter sing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" through a shaky live stream on my phone. Her voice was clear, confident. When she glanced toward the front row during the final applause, the camera happened to pan in the same direction. There was an empty seat, reserved, marked with a simple placard, "Mr. Richard Ward." The chat buzzed with emojis and hearts, but I saw none of it. I only saw the gap, and in the background, a neighbor leaned toward Laura and whispered, "Busy again, huh?" The next day I sent flowers, blue orchids, Ellie's favorite. She didn't respond. When I called, Laura picked up and said, "She's tired. Big night." The conversation ended there. A few weeks later, Ellie received an acceptance letter from a prestigious arts academy, full scholarship, vocal performance. I was ecstatic. "That's amazing," I said over the phone. "We'll celebrate this weekend. Big dinner, your choice." She hesitated. Then, "I'm not going." "What do you mean you're not going?" "I don't want to spend 4 years preparing for a performance you won't come to." I tried to laugh it off. "Ellie, come on. This is huge." "I don't need another empty seat, Dad." And just like that, the call ended. Laura didn't speak about it. But that weekend, when I came by with a gift card and a smile, she didn't open the door, just left the envelope outside. On the back, she had written, "Try showing up instead." That holiday season, we took our family Christmas photo without much discussion. I wasn't there for the shoot, of course. I was at a groundbreaking event in Houston. But Laura sent the final version anyway. I was in it. Kind of. They had used a cutout from an older photo, cropped my face, adjusted the brightness, pasted me in next to the tree. It was seamless, almost professional. I showed it to a colleague. "Nice photo," he said. "You look a little still." That became the norm. Every major event, birthdays, school milestones, holidays, my presence was reduced to pixels. A version of me that didn't move, speak, or hug. Laura started making scrapbooks. Handmade, beautiful. I saw one during a rare visit. The cover was wrapped in red cloth, embroidered with silver thread. On the spine, in cursive, "Maybe next time." Inside were photos of Ellie with her brother, her mom, her friends. Laughter frozen in glossy prints. Beneath each picture, captions like "First Dance Recital" or "Science Fair Winner." And every so often, a space where I was meant to be, either filled by a photoshopped image or left blank. I asked Laura about it once, trying to joke. "You could have at least used a better photo of me." She didn't laugh. She just said, "I use what I have." Later that night, I opened one of her journals she had left on the coffee table. Maybe by accident, maybe not. On a page dated 2 months prior, she had written, "Being married to Richard is like being a widow who still gets tax returns. I don't know what hurts more, the loneliness or the guilt of missing someone who's not dead." I closed the journal slowly, put it back exactly how I found it. That same night, Ellie came into the room, said hi like I was a guest, and went back to her homework. The next morning, I flew to Atlanta for another property ribbon-cutting ceremony. I told myself they'd understand. I was building a future. But in truth, I was becoming a memory in real time, one carefully edited into the frame when needed and erased when not. The morning of Ellie's graduation, the sky over Manhattan was unusually clear, not a single cloud. From my office on the 30th floor, I could see the entire skyline stretching like a painting, impressive, serene, detached. My phone buzzed once, a calendar reminder. Ellie's graduation, 3 p.m. EST, Livestream link attached. I tapped it open, then set the screen face down. There was still the acquisition call at 2, then a closing signature at 4. I told myself I'd watch during the gap. I'd be there, in a way. The live stream began with shaky audio. A sea of students in caps and gowns filtered into neat rows. My daughter, in a blue robe with gold honors cords draped around her neck, stood out, taller now, more composed, but still unmistakably my Ellie. She walked with grace, pride, poise. I turned up the volume. As the keynote speaker wrapped up, the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. And now, our valedictorian, Ellie Ward. I leaned closer. Ellie stepped up to the microphone. She smiled, the polite kind, and began speaking. Her voice didn't crack. Her speech was brilliant, articulate, heartfelt. She spoke about resilience, about the power of choosing who you want to become. I caught myself smiling as if I deserved to. Then it happened. Right after her final sentence, the audience erupted in applause. Ellie looked out into the crowd, and she waited. Her eyes scanned from left to right, slowly, as if memorizing each row. Then she stopped, a second too long. I knew what she was doing. She was searching for me. The camera panned toward the audience. Front row, center seat, empty. The applause quieted, just for a beat, and in that beat, I felt something split. She lowered her gaze, bowed her head, and walked off the stage. Not a wave, not a smile toward the live stream. Nothing. And then came the final sting. The announcer's voice, as cheerful as ever, declared, "Ellie Ward, daughter of Richard Ward, president of Halden Real Estate Group, joining us virtually today." She didn't turn. She didn't acknowledge the mention of my name. She disappeared behind the curtain as the next name was called. I stared at the screen long after the ceremony had moved on. My office, usually full of quiet power, felt like a glass cage. I could see the world, but couldn't reach it. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't even realize tears had welled in my eyes until one slipped down onto my wristwatch. And then my phone buzzed again. A text from Laura. "She looked for you. You weren't there." No anger, no punctuation, just fact. I sat back, phone in hand, staring at that sentence like it had weight. And it did. All 22 characters of it crushed something inside me that had been rotting quietly for years. I don't remember the rest of that day. I think I took a meeting, maybe two. I know I smiled and said words and nodded at documents, but all I could see was her face, standing alone on that stage, searching through the crowd for a man who'd never made it a priority to show up. That night, around 11 p.m., I received an email. No subject, no message, just an attachment. A video. I hesitated before opening it, but something inside me knew exactly what it would be. It started with a close-up of a cardboard box. On top, a sticky note. From Dad. The camera panned over its contents. One by one, a pink ukulele, a stack of sketchbooks, a science kit, ballet shoes, a microphone toy, a DIY camera kit, a navy hoodie with her college logo, an engraved pen, all unopened. Still in their packaging, tags on, dust settled. The camera didn't shake. There was no narration, just quiet, ambient room noise. Each item was pulled out, held up to the lens, and placed gently back. At the bottom of the box, the last item, a letter. The envelope hadn't been unsealed, but my handwriting was unmistakable. The camera lingered on it. Then, slowly, it zoomed out to show the whole box. Tidy, full, untouched. The video ended. I watched it again, and again. On the third viewing, I realized the room she'd filmed it in wasn't hers. It was a studio dorm, meaning she'd taken the box with her, meaning she'd carried the weight I thought she'd forgotten, and she hadn't said a word. Not once. I closed my laptop. For the first time in my career, I canceled a meeting without rescheduling. I sat alone in the dark, surrounded by everything I thought I'd built, wondering if any of it mattered anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. Because some nights, silence is louder than any scream. I resigned the following week. There was no dramatic outburst, no closing monologue, no slamming doors. Just a brief email sent at 6:47 a.m., subject line, effective immediately. I attached a PDF of my signed resignation letter. 15 years, one sentence. The news broke by noon. Halden Real Estate CEO steps down amid unexplained exit. The speculation spread fast. Burnout, scandal, secret acquisition. None of it was true. No one knew the real reason. I missed a moment I couldn't buy back. When my assistant called to ask what to do with my remaining schedule, I told her to cancel everything. Everything. I sold the Audi, sold the apartment, liquidated the equity portfolio I'd spent 2 decades building. I moved into a small cabin 2 hours outside the city. No Wi-Fi, no housekeeper. Just me, a wood stove, and enough silence to make the walls echo. There was no plan, no blueprint. Only a dull ache in my chest and a box of unsaid things that had been collecting dust, like the box Ellie filmed. I found a folder in my old briefcase. Inside was something I hadn't touched in months. A draft of a speech titled "To My Daughter on Her Graduation Day." I had written it in the back of a plane, somewhere between Seattle and Chicago. It was everything I had meant to say, about how proud I was, how brilliant she had become, how sorry I was for the birthdays, the broken promises, the years lost. I had rehearsed it once, alone, but I never read it out loud, because I wasn't there. Now I lit the fireplace and read the speech aloud to the empty room. No applause, no camera, just me and the crackle of firewood as my voice broke. The next day I began to write. 1 letter per day. No screens, no typed fonts, just ink, paper, and the weight of what I should have said years ago. Some were apologies. Others were stories. Memories from her childhood I had watched in fragments. Photos I kept in my wallet but hadn't earned. One letter described the day she was born, how I watched the sunrise from a hotel window in Denver, how I swore I'd never miss another moment. Another detailed the dream I had of us learning to ride bikes together, something that never happened. 30 letters in 30 days. I didn't send them. Not because I feared her reaction, but because they weren't ready. I wasn't ready. Writing them wasn't for her, not yet. It was for me. A way to face the man I had become, and finally, begin to let go of him. On day 31, I walked into a local art supply store and bought a set of oil pastels, a sketchbook, and a how-to guide on portraiture. I remembered Ellie once told me she loved drawing people. They're harder than objects, but more alive, she had said. I started with shapes, ovals, light shadows. None of it looked like anything at first, but I kept at it. I also signed up for a community dance class, something Laura had tried to rope me into years ago. The instructor was half my age and twice as flexible, but I didn't care. I played guitar at night, badly, out of tune. I learned 4 chords and wrote a song I never planned to play for anyone. I did all of it not to impress, not to fix, but to understand what I had ignored, what I had dismissed as hobbies, as fluff, as time wasters. They weren't. They were connection. They were presence. Eventually, I felt ready. I selected one of the sketches I had done of Ellie, based on a photo Laura once sent me. Ellie, age 7, wind-blown hair, missing front tooth, eyes like storm clouds. I framed it, wrote a short note. Just 4 words. I remember this you, and I mailed it. No letter, no explanation, no tracking number. Just a man sending a piece of memory, hoping it reached her. Days passed, then weeks. No reply, no text, no call. But one afternoon, Laura forwarded me a photo. It was taken from the corner of Ellie's dorm room. You could see her desk, the window, and on the wall above her bed, my sketch, framed, hung, centered. She hadn't said a word, not even a thank you, but it was there. And that, for the first time in a long time, felt like something more than silence. It felt like hope. The first message came on a Tuesday afternoon. No preamble, no greeting, just 10 words on a gray background. It's not forgiveness, it's observation. Don't mistake one for the other. I read it 3 times, then once more aloud. It was Ellie's number, still saved in my phone after all this time. I hadn't expected a reply, much less a message that sounded so carefully chosen, like each syllable had been filtered through a sieve of caution and truth. She was watching me, not forgiving, not inviting, just watching. And for now, that was enough. I didn't respond. I didn't want to shift the balance. This was her step to take, her distance to set. Mine was simply to honor it. A week later, Laura texted, "There's a winter showcase at the college. Ellie's performing. She said you can come. Just sit near the back. Don't bring flowers." The last line made me smile. It was Ellie, all right. Precise, controlled, allergic to spectacle. I wore a navy sweater, the same one from the only family photo I'd taken in person. I sat 5 rows from the back, aisle seat, ticket folded into fourths in my pocket like a relic. The auditorium lights dimmed, and students began to take the stage. Each performance was met with polite applause. Then came a piano piece, soft, steady. Ellie stepped forward to the mic. She didn't look into the crowd. Her hands trembled for half a second. Then she began to read. It was a personal essay, titled, "The Man Who Taught Me Absence." My breath caught. "I don't remember the first time I missed my father," she began, "because there were too many after." Absence, when consistent, stops feeling like an event. It becomes atmosphere. The room stilled. No one stirred. Even the air seemed to pause. She went on to describe birthdays without candles blown out together, school plays where applause felt like echo, the sound of a ringtone that never came. "I used to think he didn't love me," she said. "Now I think he didn't know how." And then, near the end. But something changed. A box arrived. Inside was a drawing of me I didn't know he'd ever seen, and for the first time, I felt seen. The piece closed without a tear, without dramatics, just a final line. "I don't forgive him, but I no longer delete him." The applause was thunderous. She bowed, stepped back, and for a flicker, barely noticeable, glanced toward the back of the room. And I nodded. That was all. No grand reunion, no embrace. But she had let me exist again in her narrative, and that mattered. A few days later, it rained. Not the kind of rain that blows sideways or soaks your socks, just a steady, cold drizzle that turns the city gray and makes everything feel slower. I had driven into town for groceries. Old habit now, shopping for real food, not catered meals. I parked along a side street near campus, debating whether to brave the rain or wait it out. Then I saw her. Ellie. She stood alone, hood half up, waiting for a ride outside a bookstore. I don't know what made me grab the umbrella from the passenger seat. I just moved. Like instinct, I walked toward her, slow, careful, like approaching a bird on a windowsill. She didn't look up at first. Then she did. She didn't flinch. I opened the umbrella, held it above both our heads, still no words. We stood there for nearly a minute, just watching the cars pass. Then, softly, she said, "Still writing those letters?" I swallowed. Every day. She nodded as if confirming something only she understood. "That's a lot of paper," she said. "I recycle." A small laugh escaped her lips. Quick, surprised, unwilling. She looked ahead again. "Don't expect anything." "I don't," I said. "I just like standing in the rain with you." The cab arrived. She opened the door, then paused. "If you ever send them," she said, "don't number them." "Why?" "I want to read the ones I choose, not the ones you choose." And then she was gone. The umbrella dripped in my hand. My sweater was soaked. But I felt warm somehow. Hope has a strange way of showing up. not in grand gestures, but in passing comments, shared umbrellas, and the space between two people who once spoke in silence and now speak in fragments. I walked back to my car. That night, I wrote a letter. Not numbered, not planned, just honest. And I didn't keep it. The turkey was overcooked, the cranberry sauce was too tart, and the mashed potatoes had lumps. But nobody complained. It was the first Thanksgiving in 5 years where every seat at the table was filled. Laura set the plates in silence, a kind of quiet reverence that didn't need explanation. Ellie arrived with a pumpkin pie and a guitar case. Her brother, now in grad school, brought his girlfriend and 2 bottles of wine. I brought nothing but a dish of stuffing and the nerves of a man trying not to overstep. We didn't say grace. We didn't need to. Halfway through the meal, between casual questions and nervous laughter, Ellie said, "I've been learning a song. Thought I'd play it." She opened the guitar case, tuned a few strings, then began plucking a melody. It was simple, hesitant, familiar. A lullaby I used to hum in the car when she was a baby, one I never thought she remembered. I had never played it on guitar. I didn't even know she knew the notes. She didn't look at me while she played, just focused on her fingers, the strings, the sound. And when the final note faded, she said, "I had to learn it myself, but I wanted you to hear it." Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Laura whispered, "Beautiful." Ellie stood, walked into the hallway, and returned with a box. My box. The one I had filled with gifts over the years. Gifts she had filmed, untouched, unopened. She placed it in front of me and sat down. "I thought maybe it should be yours now," she said. I hesitated, then opened the top. Inside were the same objects, still in their packaging. The ukulele, the sketchbooks, the science kit, the hoodie, the unopened letter. But on top, one new item, the framed drawing I had sent her. I pulled it out, held it in my hands, then looked up. "Why give it back?" "I'm making room for something new," she said. "But I wanted you to open it this time, in front of me." I opened each item slowly, not to examine, but to acknowledge, to be present. When I reached the letter, I unfolded it. "I never knew what I wrote," I said. "Now you will." I read it. My own handwriting, my own regrets. Suddenly unfamiliar, like a confession from someone I used to be. When I finished, Ellie smiled, not wide, but real. "You can keep the box," she said. "Empty or full. That's up to you." That night, after everyone left, I sat on the porch with a notebook in my lap, and I wrote a new kind of letter. Not to Ellie, to fathers. Fathers who missed the recitals, the games, the firsts and lasts. Fathers who thought presents could be outsourced, scheduled, rescheduled. Fathers like me. I called it the Present Father Manifesto. It became more than a letter. It became a movement. 6 months later, I launched the Present Father Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping men reconnect with their families. We offered workshops, mentorship programs, even weekend retreats where fathers could learn how to listen again. I spoke at conferences, not about real estate, but about regret, repair, and the radical act of showing up. Ellie surprised me one day by asking to volunteer. She had completed her degree in psychology and was training as a family therapist. "I want to help kids like me," she said, "and maybe dads like you before it's too late." We co-hosted our first workshop together in a modest community center. Ellie opened the session with a story. "I used to believe my father didn't love me," she said. "Now I understand. He didn't know how to love in a way I could feel, but he learned, slowly, awkwardly, but he learned." Then came her graduation ceremony. This time I was in the front row. No live stream, no proxy. Just me, hands clasped, heart pounding. She walked across the stage, accepted her degree, then turned to the mic for her speech. My dad wasn't there when I needed him most, she began, but he showed up when no one thought he could. She paused, looked at me. This is also fatherhood, I cried, openly. And for the first time, the applause wasn't just for her. It was for us.